Hi, welcome back to McClutchy Maths. My name is Natalie McClutchy and we are continuing our video series today on algebraic techniques with our fifth video, and in this one we're looking at multiplying algebra. So without any further ado, let's get straight into that and have a quick recap on some of the multiplication concepts that we've talked about in previous videos. These are our basic foundations that we want to make sure we understand before we move on. So firstly, when we see an 8 or a number with a letter smooshed up against it, we don't normally write that multiplication symbol in between. It just means 8 times x, or 8 multiplied by x. So remember, our numbers at the front are called coefficients. Our letters at the end are called pronumerals. I'm going to keep trying to introduce that correct terminology to you, but I'll also tell you about numbers and letters just so that we make sure that we're really all on the same page. Okay, let's talk a little bit about powers, because this is where students often get confused. Now, if we think about some numbers first of all, let's take the algebra away, focus on just real numbers. 3 to the power of 2 means 3 squared. It could also be written as 3 times 3, and of course the answer is 9. So what it means is when we square something, we're multiplying it by itself. 3 to the power of 2 was a number. Let's look at it with a letter. We can also multiply letters by themselves. So in this case, we've got y to the power of 2. It simply means y times y, or y times by itself. Now this is where students get a little bit confused. Y squared is very different to 2y. You notice with 2y we've got the coefficient and then the pronumeral, the 2, then the y. Now the 2 is the big number. You'll notice that the power is an itty bitty number and it's raised up a little bit higher, and those 2's tell us two different things. They're still the number 2. When it's a big 2 in front, it means multiplied by 2. When it's a little power, it means the letter is multiplied by itself. So it's important when you're writing your answers as well that you write that power as a little number up to the right of the number or the letter. But also it's important that you remember if the number is in front, it just means multiplied by. We're going to talk lots more about index laws with a lot more complex examples. We're going to keep it fairly straightforward and simple in this video. So let's have a look at some quick basic multiplication rules. So this is my rules. You won't find these written like this in a textbook. This is just how I go about it and how I teach it. So firstly, let's focus on those coefficients, those whole numbers and fractions in front of our algebra terms. When we do a number of, we might have to do like 2x times 3y times 4a times half of a b. First of all, focus on those whole numbers at the front of each of our terms. Multiply those first. That's going to become the coefficient of your simplified expression. So it'll be the new number that sits out the front. Second rule, all those letters that are multiplied, we just join them at the end. Smush them together like they've been in a blender together. So if I've got an a times a b times an x times a y, it'll just simply sit on the end as a, b, x, y. All joined together, no symbols in between. Now, the order is not super important, but it's a convention in algebra to do it in alphabetical order. As we've talked about in previous videos, if I have 4 multiplied by 10, I get 40. 10 multiplied by 4, also 40. So the order that we multiply two things doesn't really matter. So a times b is the same as b times a. We just typically do it alphabetically. Something you're going to need to want to watch out for. If you've got a term with an x and another term with an x and another term with an x and you're multiplying those, and if they've got powers or no powers, the answer at the end will have an x, but its power is going to change when they're multiplied. Once again, stay tuned for those index laws and we'll go into that in a lot more detail. Let's do a few worked examples. You're going to see this word simplify. Simplify simply means do it, multiply it, and come up with an answer. When you multiply, you might have 10 terms to multiply, and you multiply them all out. Your answer is going to be 1 term. That's why it's simplified. Instead of 2 terms, it's going to become 1. So firstly, let's look at our little rules. I've got them down the bottom just as a little reminder. Maybe you should pause and copy them down. But firstly, I've got it in red. We're going to multiply those whole numbers first. The whole numbers are 3 and 8, so 3 times 8 makes 24. Then the second part is those pronumerals, those letters. We're going to pop them on the end. Just join it on just like that. There's only one of those terms has a letter. It's the letter M. It's now going to just join on the end. Easy peasy. Okay, let's look at example 2. 5j multiplied by 6k. The only difficulty that's changed in this question is that we've got 2 different letters instead of just one this time. So once again, we follow our rule. The 5 times the 6 makes 30. And then our second part is those two letters, the J and the K, are going to just simply join onto the end as a J and then a K in alphabetical order. Okay, next worked example, 7x times 2x. So once again, those whole numbers first, 7 times 2 makes 14. Now you notice that both terms have an x. So I could write that as x times x. Or I could even simplify that further as xx. But the most correct way, because neither way is particularly wrong, the most simplified way of doing this is to use index laws or powers. So we've got two x's, they're multiplied by themselves. It makes x to the power of 2. So I'm going to keep that index law part of it. That's as difficult as it's going to get in this video. So that's more appropriate for our year 7 and 8 students here. Okay, now I'm going to do a worded problem. Then we're pretty much finished with the video, so stay tuned for what's coming next. But anyway, let's get into it. Write an expression for the area of the rectangle below. Now this is the typical of the kind of questions you might see in an exam involving multiplying of algebra. And the reason is that when we're finding area of a rectangle is length times width. So we're multiplying. So let's recall our rules again. We're going to be multiplying 8a by 6x. That will be our rule for our area. So we've written an expression, area equals 8a times 6x. We actually need to simplify it a little bit further. So let's do what our skills are. We're going to multiply 8 by 6 first of all to simplify that. So 8 6s are 48, and the a and the x are going to smush onto the end of that in alphabetical order. Obviously, if we're given units such as centimeters, meters, millimeters, we should put those on the end in centimeters or millimeters squared. Well, that's all we've got time for in this particular video. I hope you found that helpful. Watch our next video next week. It's coming out. It's on dividing algebra, and then we're going to move on to expanding brackets, factorizing, simplifying, substitution, index laws, algebra fractions, quadratics. The list goes on. You thought you were getting in for a short video series. It's a lot here, and it spans right across high school, so do stay tuned for that. And if you found this helpful, why not tell somebody that you care about? Tell us, tell somebody else, and like and subscribe. So tell us in the comments, or feel free to write us an email, and you could also like and subscribe so you'll know when our next video on dividing fractions is out, or any other future videos as well. If you've got any questions, you could contact me at mcclutchymass@yahoo.com with the M on the end there. I don't know what happened there, but yahoo.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram too, which is a great place to stay in touch. Tips, tricks, puzzles, and memes, and a little bit of fun. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to our ongoing subscribers here at McClutchy Maths. I'm Natalie McClutchy. Have a wonderful day.